Cool. So, hello. If you guys don't know me, if you're just hopping on right now, my name is Esteban. I created an organization called SDR Blueprint, where essentially I help people break into tech, healthcare, finance with little to no experience or no education, mostly entry level. Today I'm speaking with David March. So, I guess, David, just tell us about your background, who you are, and I guess like what you do.
Yeah, thanks for having me on here, Esteban. Name is David March. Pretty much, I do candidate marketing. I used to be call myself a career coach, but I feel like at this point it's really just candidate marketing, and I feel like it's a more honest way of talking about things. So, I do candidate marketing, and I do business marketing, working with candidates and businesses because at the end of the day, it's the same marketing principles. Yeah, my background is in recruiting, and then before that with coaching, got certified and certified professional coach. So, yeah, that's kind of a little bit more about what I do. Oh, and I also have a book. I'm also an author of a book called Vision in Action, and I have my own podcast too. So that's a little bit about me.
Nice. That's interesting. I recently stopped calling myself a career coach too. I don't know. I just feel like I feel like there's more negative connotation to it now, and I feel like there's also people who aren't really good career coaches, like people who have those experiences. I don't know. Kind of changed my approach as well. But it sounds like obviously like you've invented yourself or reinvented yourself multiple times. How does someone know like, when it's time to pivot versus, when they should push through in terms of trying to break into any career with the candidate marketing that you provide?
Yeah, the pivot or persevere moment is what I call it.
Mhm.
And yeah, I mean, you really have to first just understand yourself and really get into your internal world and see what's right for you, what feels right for you. And there's usually three different phases people go through. It's like you're gonna be either motivated to make a move based off of like how you're feeling and inspiration in the moment, or you're going to be like really burnt out and you're going to be struggling, and you're just going to feel like I can't do this anymore and it's affecting my family health, it's affecting my physical health. I need to make a transition. Or the third way is really based off of the kind of second way I just said, where you're just laid off, and you don't really have a choice. But you're probably burnt out anyway because you're just like you're more or less like fried because the ground just fell from under you, and you're just like, what do I do next? So sometimes you're not in a good headspace there either. But yeah, those are three places I would say.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting, right? I know a lot of people feel stuck, and you just name like three ways people try to like push themselves forward. Sometimes they're forced to, sometimes it's out of force, and then sometimes it's just out of pure choice, based on how they're feeling. So initially, let's just say you're dealing with somebody who already knows what career path they want to go down. What's the first step they should take to get out of, the career paralysis, to actually start breaking into the market for themselves?
Yeah, so definitely start marketing yourself for sure. I mean, you already know what you want, or know what you're looking for and everything. Then you got to start getting specific on the specific like positions that you do well at. What I tell my clients is to create like three different buckets. Like, what's the ideal position you'd want to work at? What is the stretch position you'd want to work at? And then what is like your easiest interview kind of position? Create like three buckets there. And from there, you'll be able to kind of assess the situation and then go from there. So that's why I think the first step would be, putting the positions that you want into three buckets. The worst thing you could do is just spray and pray, right? You just want to,
Yeah.
you know, look at just anyone and everyone that's getting it has no position, and you just send your resume to everyone.
Yeah, no, spray and pray. Well, I don't know. It just doesn't work in anymore in terms of like just applying and waiting to hear back. I mean, I think that's just dead entirely. So you
Mm.
mentioned marketing, right? And I think there's a lot of things that go into marketing, and LinkedIn is a great tool. That's how like me and you landed here. So with that being said, like I know we mentioned marketing, but can we go a little bit deeper than the surface level? Like what are forms of marketing that people can do to really attract attention like of recruiters and get messages from them or, an employer?
Yeah, I mean, well, look, I think that, we're of the same belief system. The idea of outbound marketing is the way to go.
Yeah.
Um, I think that really that's your steps forward. Like, and beyond like the more marketing strategy kind of pieces, it's just about really going through the filters either if you're using Apollo or if you're using LinkedIn Sales Navigator or wherever you're using, you got to go to the filters. And, that's really where the marketing is happening, right? You're finding who the decision makers are, all these kind of things like that. And then what I find is helpful for a lot of clients that I work with is going through just kind of reflection exercise where you're
Hmm.
reflecting on your past accomplishments, past
Hmm.
experiences, and you're writing out your projects, and you're writing out in a way that is, what I use a framework called Scampy. And in that framework, we're breaking down the accomplishments and the projects in a way that really highlights their strengths, the specific things that they've done. What I sort of done is I was a resume writer before, and now I just switch everything I've been using on resume writing into an
Hmm.
outreach message. I mean, resumes are not really, I don't know, I think they're getting out of style. But
Yeah.
the real issue, I think, and I wrote an article on this, is the idea of AI, right? Because it's like you're using an LLM or AI to write a resume, and then another AI is looking at your resume, trying to grade it and see if it's going to be a good match for the position. And then another AI interviews you. It's not a real person. It's
Right.
like AI agent. And then you're using AI to respond back to those questions. Maybe the ask a question, chat GPT it. So it's just AI working, AI working, AI working, AI. And it's just like, where's the human connection? Where's the actual like relationships? And that's what I encourage people to do when I do marketing for them, using outbound messaging and writing out these particular messages that are based off of what I learned in resume writing in an outreach message so that they can build a relationship with an actual human being instead of just being AI, AI, AI.
Yeah. No, I mean, there's a lot, that you really broke down. So I want to touch on two things, the outbound and then also the AI. But first, the outbound very quickly. I mean, I come from a sales background. I was an SDR. I know you have a sales background too. So like some people might not get that lingo. So break down what like outbound messaging is and what's the best form of outbound messaging that you think works.
Yeah, so I've been doing outbound messaging for a long time. It's definitely part of sales background, sure. So, I mean, there's a lot of different pieces to a whole like a breakdown on that. I have a whole thing here. I'll pull it up just so that we can have some structure because I think that that's kind of where we're getting at here. When I do outbound, I'm looking at a company size, um, and looking at the revenue range, looking at what my target industries, I do companies I want to target, who I actually want to target, the VP of product, CIO,
Yeah.
understanding what the pain points are, what the geography are, what their buying triggers are. And so those are all key pieces of a good breakdown of ICP,
Mhm.
ideal client profile, which is important for outbound,
Mhm.
and then you can start to create your email campaign or messaging campaign based off of the ICP that you've identified, and I like to explore depending on how deep we're going into things. I like
Mhm.
to use Clay to orchestrate the personalization of those messages as well.
Okay, so I'm very familiar with Apollo. For the people who aren't familiar with Apollo, it's basically a tool that you can use to find emails, to find phone numbers, but also to create sequences to reach out to people. Now, I've heard of Clay, but can you break down what Clay is? Because I think it'd be good for the people and for me as well. What exactly is that doing, like with Apollo?
Yeah, so first of all, when I was first learning about clay, I
Mhm.
was just like, what is clay? Like, it's just so, it has like 1,000 different applications and it's like so
Mhm.
complicated because it's essentially just an Excel spreadsheet,
Okay.
but it's not. It's like the
Mhm.
most complicated thing you could possibly think of. But at the end of the day, I mean, it depends on what you want to use it for because
Yeah.
I use it for outbound, right? But some
Right.
people use it for CRM enrichment. Some people use it for 1,000. It really has like 1,000 different
Mhm.
applications. It really does. So it's hard to say what actually Clay is. And if you get into it, it's Excel spreadsheet where the columns speak to each other.
Mhm.
And it's good for outbound because it can create the CSV file that you're going to upload to any one of your, sequencers. I mean, you use Apollo. I don't use Apollo for sequencing. I use Instantly. Um, yeah, I mean, Clay is going to essentially create the CSV file so that you can um, really, how do you say, personalize the emails in the first place. It's creating the CSV file that Apollo or Instantly is using to then send out emails. So it's something completely different than Apollo, although it can include everything that Apollo does in the sense that you can find leads and everything on there.
So interesting. So it adds personalization. So that way when you use instantly, like they'll get personalized emails. Now, do you give it like specific commands?
Yeah, it's quite complicated because
Yeah.
yeah, you can give it all kinds of commands. You can really do anything with it. Like you can upload, let's say, job descriptions in there, and then you can actually use GPT to query the job description right on Clay. So that's one thing. You can also use Clay agents, which is what they use for enrichment. So if you have like 10 profiles of people, I
Mhm.
can put it through Clay and I can enrich it with all the LinkedIn profiles that they've used, LinkedIn posts that they've made over the
Mhm.
last, like, I don't know, 60 days. And then from that, I can then query those 60 days of posts on ChatGPT to say, find out what the most relevant post is to my offer. And then you can personalize the message to a post that they made. And that's all done through AI.
Okay. Wow. So, I mean, this is funny, right? And people tell me this all the time. Do you think it should be this complicated, like to get a career? You know what I'm saying? Like the process, because I've been doing this for people for a while too. And your process sounds even more thorough, right? It sounds even more personalized and specific. So, like, do you think it's fair for people to have to like learn how to do this and learn a whole new skill? Like at this point, they're like sales development for themselves, right? And they're just selling themselves, right? So, like, I don't
Yeah.
know. How do you feel about that?
It's crazy. It's
Yeah.
nuts. This is
Yeah.
what it is. I just want to get a job, man. I don't want to do all these things. Yeah. No, it is nuts. It's a little bit so it's a little bit much, you know, like how do you break through the noise? That's the
Yeah.
issue.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah. I mean, when people tell me that, I tell them like I'm not helping people like, get a career at McDonald's. We're helping people get careers like 75K or more a year, right? You know what I'm saying? Or
yeah.
some cases six figures. So it's like this is what you're gonna have to do. And also times have changed. Like we mentioned like what resumes are obsolete. I personally feel like right now at this point resumes are obsolete. But now I want to touch on the AI thing, right? So I actually tested this out and I found a job description and I applied to it because what I like to do is I still like to test the market, see what works, see what's not working. And I applied to this role. And the reason why I applied to it because it mentioned that there is going to be the whole hiring process was about 20 minutes long, no exaggeration. 5 minutes is personal info like name, address. Second step is your resume. And then the third step is a 15-minute interview with AI. And I just wanted to test out the AI. It's essentially like you're talking to ChatGPT. You use the voice feature, but it was just weird. It was weird because it's like, okay, I'm not talking to anybody. It's literally a circle on the screen. So my question is this. I teach people how to use AI, ironically, to help them prepare for interviews. So we mentioned like, hey, we're using AI to get our resumes through, and then AI is interviewing us. I mean, because of the lack of human communication, what do you think people should do now to adapt? Because the future is going to be AI interviews that are going to last 15.
So I mean, every time the AI conversation comes up, I say pretty much the same thing. It's that you have to internalize information or embody information because with AI and all these things, you have the whole world's answers at your fingertips. So I have infinite amounts of knowledge and understanding at my fingertips. I can just put something into ChatGPT and I can get the answer to literally any question. And same thing with YouTube and same thing with everything, YouTube videos, do it yourself. At the end of the day, same thing I say every time is it's all about internalization or an embodiment of the information. It's, like, what are we going to do? We're just going to like, I'm gonna like the joke I always see is like you go to a convenience store to buy a candy bar,
Mhm.
and then you're like, the guy said thank you. What should I do? Like, should I go on ChatGPT and get a crafty response, or am
Yeah.
I just gonna internalize what it means to be a human in this situation and just say thank you? What or do I have to ask ChatGPT about every single little thing? Eventually, you have to internalize, you have to embody the things that you're doing. It can't just be all based off AI. And you're doing interviews. If you're doing all your interviews based on AI and you have these perfect answers, then when you actually meet them in person, um, they're not going to know anything because they don't know anything. They just
Mm.
know how to prompt GPT. They have to
Yeah.
actually internalize, embody the information. So that's
Yeah.
what I think.
Yeah, I mean, the irony of it is you have to be human first, even though we're living in the world of AI. But awesome. So, I mean, right now, I mean, what do you think is the real reason people are struggling more in the job market than they did like 5 to 10 years ago? Do you think it's the outbound, the AI, or is there like anything else additional?
But there's hundreds of factors, really. Hard to say exactly, right? But there is so many people that are laid off from big companies that are really great and really intelligent. So there's a lot more competition than there ever was before.
Yeah.
Um, the you know, there's that. I mean, AI is definitely taking a part of it because I think entry level jobs are going to be much harder to get because, a lot of the administrative entry level kind of tasks can be done with AI. So that's difficult. I mean, it's really hard to say, man. Really hard to say. What do you think?
I don't know because I see a lot of what they call like ghost hiring. You know what I'm saying? But essentially, like, how are we to know that? Because companies are never going to tell us entirely when they're ghost hiring or if they are. The job market's confusing because, numbers are numbers. But also, if we go through the internet, like we can go through TikTok or LinkedIn right now, people are saying like they're struggling so hard with the process. I personally feel like, and this is just my personal opinion, is the approach in which you apply has changed so drastically that the mass amount of people haven't caught on to it. Like people haven't, like me personally, since I come from that sales development, I was cold calling hiring managers, right? I was emailing them, DMing them. It's gonna sound crazy, but like I've texted CEOs because they didn't pick up my phone call, and that's how I got an interview because I texted them, and they were like, "I don't know how you got my number, but this is so cool. Let's meet." You know what I'm saying? Of course, it was a sales role, so it made more sense to like kind of be that aggressive because that's what they want from people. But you can still the same principles apply, for many industries across the board. It just depends on how you come across. So I think it's a number of things. Of course, the job market's not the best. Of course, companies are ghost hiring. They're not really hiring, right? They just post to make it look like, they're growing. But also, it's just the market has changed so drastically that you have to change with it. And what people don't realize is they don't teach this in schools. I just happen to learn this because I got a career in B2B, you know what I'm saying? And I got fortunate enough to like, gain those skills. So what people don't realize is they're gonna have to gain a whole new skill set entirely. You know what I'm saying? And hopefully, maybe this is something they can teach in schools, but they don't. That's why people like, you and me exist. But yeah, man, I mean, ultimately, we help people in different spaces. I notice you help people land, six-figure roles anywhere from like 100K to 300K. So my
Yeah.
thing is this, I know what separates people based on like what I said, like learning that new skill set. But, what do you think successful job seekers do differently, when they work with you that helps them get to where they need to be?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think that it's more about when you're in a higher level positions, we're talking more about leadership. And that's
Mhm.
why I kind of get more deeper into leadership coaching and these type of things. So I think that what the higher level people are doing is they're not only showing their hard skills, because at that point it's like at the level that I'm working at, it's like you've obviously proven yourself in hard skills.
Mhm.
And it's really more about like your soft skills and your leadership ability. So how do you kind of portray that? You can definitely do introduction videos, that sort of thing, thought leadership, even podcasts. What I found that really differentiates me is I create video embedded emails so that when I'm sending emails to people, there is like a video inside the email. And then I can also create personalized landing pages on that person's experience, which again is really just the same thing we do as a business owner trying to get
Yeah.
business. You create a landing page, and I mean, that's what everyone's doing. So it's like I'm really just applying all the, best marketing practices to a particular person's candidacy to get a role.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what I'm doing.
So I'm pretty familiar with Vidyard and Loom. For the people who are watching who aren't, essentially you can just literally copy and paste a video into the email and it'll be like a GIF and you can be like waving and then they can click on it like via a link. So what in particular are you including in the landing pages that would like let's say somebody sent an email to me and I'm a hiring manager, like what would catch my attention on that landing page?
It would be based off the research we've done on the job description, right?
Okay.
Because the job description is the guide. It's almost like job description is the map and you're looking for gold, treasure. You use the job description as your guide to get to the end result, the treasure or the job offer.
So this is super, super, super hyper personalized, right? So do you do this for every role that you apply to? And if so, like how many roles are you expecting, the people you work with to apply to?
Yeah, because it's so personalized, I can send less messages. That's kind of the idea. So yeah, I try not to send as many. Yeah, that's what I try to do. I try to go less is more and more, you know, less companies, more personalized to those companies
Yeah,
instead of, a whole bunch of companies and not much personalization.
I agree. So are you doing this through email and through LinkedIn or primarily just through email?
I do a little bit of both.
Got you. Interesting.
Yeah.
So I know we talked about like clarifying the value, like through leadership, their soft skills and stuff like that. What
Yeah.
are like, for example, is there any particular subject line that you're gonna put in your email to help that stand out? And then also like with the body, how do you get people interested enough in the body of the email to even look at the video? Because I've done that and it's a hit or miss. It's always a hit or miss for me. It's like either no one looks at the video or everyone looks at the video and then everybody talks about it in the office. You know what I'm saying? So are you basing the subject lines like directly on like, the job description and the body on the job description as well? Or like how does that personalization come about? Or from the individual itself?
Yeah, I mean, the creation of subject lines, is based off of just I usually just use AI to find out like 10
Okay.
different 10 different options,
Yeah.
10, 15, whatever. It's usually 10. Sometimes I have more. And then I kind of look at the message and what I'm trying to do. Actually Apollo has some good training on there about how to write subject lines. It's essentially like you use some of the subject line in the body of the email as well. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of like a quick tip, if you will.
Okay. Let's just say somebody needs something today. Let's say they're listening right now and they just need a job fast. And I know you work more with intermediate level individuals. Let's say they're entry level and they want to work their way up to that. What should they focus on this week based on, this conversation that we've had so far?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's always difficult. When you're working with someone more on the earlier side, I think it's really about making the right fit. That's like the first thing that you want to do. There's a ton of recruiters that are just like getting resumes. Like I'm a dentist and I'm trying to become a software engineer, and it's like you got to make a good fit. Like you can't just be like
Right.
it can't just be like something out of left field and going into something that's completely different. So the best thing that I give someone is you want to save the recruiter or the hiring manager's time. That's
Hmm.
probably the most important thing you can do. You want to save them time, and you're saving them time by doing all the research yourself and giving them all the information. You're not giving them any homework. You're telling them about you and what you do, and you're making the match yourself, and you're doing all the things like that to make it as convenient and easy as possible for them to interview you.
I 100% agree. When it comes to like emails or like LinkedIn messaging, I always tell people like introduce yourself, well, obviously who you are, why you're reaching out, and then I always say call to action, right? Like, do you include that call to action as well? Like what I tell my clients to do is like include 2 to 3 days with 2 to 3 times, based on your availability to provide that for them. Because I just learned that from the sales side. So is that something that's like you think is important too that would save them time, like a call to action? Or like how do you usually like look at that from your perspective?
Well, again, my background is also in recruiting, and I've done business development and sales for recruiting, and I've also done like just sales in general.
Yeah.
From the specific recruiting angle, you do just want to use a job description and make sure it's a match, and know why it's a match, and message them based off that. I mean, the worst thing you could do is kind of like Hey, name is John. Need job. Here's resume. Bye.
Yeah.
Like, and a lot of people do that. Just like, I need job.
Mhm.
I
Yeah,
need job.
I think it's unfortunate, but there is a sense of desperation, I think, when people come across it. And on top of that, I know since you've been a recruiter, you probably received a ton of messages, like, right? And probably really generic messages, or it almost feels like almost copy and paste. People underestimate how likely we think alike, across the board, just as people, even if we don't speak to each other. And so, what's a belief about careers or success you wish people understood better?
Well, personally, from my perspective, I love personality types, and something that I wish people understood better is their personality type and their strengths
Mm,
and their understanding of themselves better. You have to know yourself so you can market yourself.
that's huge. Okay, awesome. Cool, man. So, I mean, where can people find you, follow your work, and connect with you?
Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn all the time, every
Mhm.
day. You can find me on LinkedIn, and coachdavemarch.com is my website for career coaching. If you notice, if you know my LinkedIn, I'm rebranding to Innovative Marketing Solutions because, like we said in the beginning of the call, I think that's really more about candidate marketing than it is about coaching at this point. But yeah, if you want to find me, you can find me. You can message me on LinkedIn. I'm most active on that platform. You can also email me. And that my email's on my website, coachdavemarch.com. But best way to contact me if you want to speak to me is send me a message on LinkedIn.
Nice. Awesome, man. Thank you so much. It's nice speaking to you, man. You have a lot of insight. Our insights are different but similar. You know what I'm saying? Just because, I think mainly because of who we work with. You work with intermediate level, I work more entry level side of things. And you have an interesting way of doing it. Your process is definitely more intricate, I'd say, and more hyper personalized. Mine's is personalized, but yours goes even like 10 steps deeper, which I find insane. But awesome, man. Thank you so much for the conversation.
Yeah, man. Thanks. That's fun. Appreciate you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.